Welcome to Insatiable, the podcast where we discuss the intersection of food, psychology, and culture. I'm your host, Ali Shapiro, an integrated health coach, 32-year and counting cancer survivor, and have radically healed my relationship with food and my body. And for the past 17 years, I've been working with clients individually, in group programs, and in company settings to do the same. Welcome. The information in this podcast should not be considered personal, individual, or medical advice. So I want to wish everybody who's listening to this the day that it drops off, which is Christmas Eve, a Merry Christmas. And for those of you who, like me, celebrated the solstice on Sunday, happy solstice. And those of you who also, like me, celebrated Hanukkah, I hope you had a wonderful Hanukkah season that just wrapped up. All cultures know to celebrate, honor, slow down this time of year in the darkness. At least for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, you're having a different type of solstice if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. And celebrate that we are returning to the light. I love that. So I'm thinking of all of you. I, on Christmas Eve, will be with my mom's side of the family, which is Catholic and big. And my tradition is to meet up with all my aunts and uncles and cousins. And my grandma, when she was alive, still get emotional thinking about her passing, hosted us for Christmas Eve every year. And then my mom took up the torch and now my aunt is. And so I will be frolicking with my cousins and laughing and just having a good time, and can really be at peace with the food because of my own truths with food that I don't take for granted, because this time of year used to really stress me out. So if you are struggling, know I'm thinking of you. And I hope this episode will help you, especially as we go into the new year. We all know, New Year's resolutions don't start. We don't magically change. And though, there's a great time for fresh starts. And I do think I use this time of year to reflect in my business, in my parenting, in my health, what worked this year, what didn't, what do I want to improve on, all those sorts of things. But one of the things that we get confused with are fresh starts are not clean slates. And so what I mean is the new year is a great fresh start. We need to take these moments like our birthdays, like the new year, like spring, right? Or the Chinese New Year. I feel like by the time I get around to actually thinking about what I'm going to do, it's like the Chinese New Year, which is, a lunar new year, the first, I think, what is it? New moon, full moon. So wherever you decide to change, right? We have to understand there are great times for these fresh starts, which I think the new year is, and recognizing that we don't necessarily have a clean slate. And that's what today's episode is about. I am re-airing my episode with Megan Telpner on her podcast, The Courageous Pivot. And you can check that out at courageouspivot.com. Megan has been on Insatiable before, and she really knows her stuff. And she has recently gone through her own pivot of closing down her nutritional academy and is kind of in that between place. And so we use this episode because she has used the immunity to change process, which she found very soul revealing and enlightening in her life right now. And this is actually the model and research that I have used for 14 years of my work. So we had a fun conversation about what is it? Why don't we bring a clean slate? Why is change so hard? Why is it not hard because we suck, but because there's protective resistance to change? Okay. So we're going to get into that. And as you think about New Year's and your focus, your intentions, your words of the year, whatever themes, this conversation will help you out. And I think it will help you reframe and shift how you approach the goals that you have around really, of course, food and your health and your body, and also life. So enjoy this episode. And I also just want to thank all of you for tuning in this year to Insatiable, whether it was an episode here and there, or I know some of you are my diehards, and I just love that. Because the podcast space, the wellness space, has quickly become about the attention economy. Who can say the most outrageous thing? Who can make people be the most afraid about aging? If I get one more thing about how every day my brain is shrinking if I'm not doing air squats every 10 minutes, it's just not a great place to come from for change, right? Shame, fear, guilt can get you started with change, but it won't keep you going. And I really appreciate those of you who tune in here to Insatiable, who want to have the deeper, nuanced, more real conversations. So it means a lot to me. I know your attention is valuable, and hearing how much the show helps you and all those things, I don't take for granted. So thank you for being here. There's going to be a lot of exciting changes in 2026. I can't share more than that right now because it's ever evolving, but a little hint of maybe a new name. I don't know. Well, we're still talking about it, but a lot of new episodes to help you really understand where you are in terms of your own readiness to change and what it takes to change based on what stage you're in. So, speaking of which, if you do want to make a change with your food, health, body, right? Everything starts with food. So, not everything starts with food, but food's going to have to be involved. So, I have a brand new, we can call it a quiz, but it's meatier than a quiz assessment for you to see what stage am I in? What food stage am I in between diet hopping and having a truce with food? Because to really realize your goals and enjoy the process and be able to trust and rest in the results of them, in addition to reaching them, you're going to have a truce with food. So check out my brand new quiz assessment at trucewithfood.com/find your food stage. I've been getting such great feedback about it. It will help you really understand what you need based on what stage of change you're in. Because we like to think that, we're sold that change is all about these big, dramatic external changes. But the transition that we have to go into internally is really what my work is about. And so you can see where you are internally. And we could call it emotionally, we could call it whatever, but what stage of change you're in. We all have to go through all 4 stages. So it's really helpful to have a map to know, okay, here's what I need to do when. So check that out. We'll link it in the show notes. Until then, I hope all of you take some time to slow down, really feel the joy and meaning and some of the hard stuff, right? A lot of feelings come up this time of year. And take care of yourself while you do all of it, okay? And I will see you in the new year for a brand new year of Insatiable. I was just counting the other day and wow, I have been podcasting for 10 years. Whew, what a milestone. So next year's 11 angel numbers. And it's a horse year, which I'm the year of the horse. I don't know anyone else born in 78 or 90 or 66. I'm doing math on the fly here, 50, 54. It's our year starting in February. But anyways, enjoy today's show. I know you will get a lot out of it. And especially for those of you on my list who were interested in how I work through my ideas of success, we get a lot into that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because it has been instrumental in my health here in midlife. But until then, enjoy what Megan and I talk about. And happy holidays, happy solstice, and wishing you lots of insights in hopefully the slowdown of this week.
Hello and welcome back to the Courageous Pivot Podcast. I'm your host, Megan Telpner, and I am thrilled once again to have you joining for another really fun conversation. This is one of my favorites so far, although I kind of feel like I might say that with every single guest I've had. I genuinely am so engrossed in these conversations. They're ones that I would have had even if we never pressed record. It's just what I'm interested and fascinated in with people that I genuinely like and who are friends or will be friends or have become friends through the course of these conversations. And today with Ali Shapiro is no different. I've been on her show before. We text often, and every time we do connect, we are so in alignment with so many things, but also her depth of wisdom in this specific area that we're talking about is so fascinating to me. She is so smart and articulate in how she explains and how she works with clients. And we get into a lot of it, and it's based on the immunity to change process. So she reached out to me after those episodes being like, this is what I do with my clients. So I thought it was such a wonderful way to kind of show in practice how this works. And I did tons of research, planned lots of questions, barely asked any of them because the conversation just flowed from the outset, as so often happens. This is such an insight-rich conversation. We both tend to talk quite quickly, so you might have to listen to it twice or in 0.75 speed or whatever that is. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Ali. Ali Shapiro. Welcome to the Courageous Pivot podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh my God, Megan, I'm so excited. I always love chatting with you.
I just had to hustle and hit record because we literally have been talking for 14 seconds. And I was like, oh, no, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. Just for a little background, we're not I feel like you're one of those people that if you lived in my neighborhood, we'd be best friends and go for walks all the time and go for lunch and have our kids play together.
Yes.
But we've never met. We've had maybe a handful of conversations, but we click every time.
We do. Yeah. You were on my podcast and I think we chatted for 30 minutes to an hour afterwards or something like that.
Tends to happen. So you were just saying, as we're recording this, it's your birthday. Are you 79?
I'm 78.
You're 78.
What are you?
79.
Oh, okay.
So we're very close in age. It's my birthday coming up as well.
When's your birthday?
October. The 25th.
Ooh, Scorpio. Yeah. I got a lot of Scorpio on my chart. My son is the 28th and he is.
Oh.
I love me some Scorpios. My dad is too.
Well, you're the same sign as Josh.
Oh yeah, Libras.
Yeah. So we were chatting and you were just saying, well, you commented on my appearance is shifting a little bit. And then you'd said that you've been going through this change of redefining success. And though we're here to talk about health and nutrition and all of these things, but I want to talk about what you just said because I think it's really important.
Well, and this point was what made me be able to have time for my health and everything. Because so I was saying the past, I guess it's been 5 years. So I had my son at 41 and I had cancer as a teenager. So little unbeknownst to me, I was also going through menopause at the same time I was postpartum. And so, in fact, the conventional fertility workup that I got at 39 told me I couldn't get pregnant at all. They were like, oh, you're in early menopause. The only thing you can do is a donor egg and IVF. And I was just like, oh my, and it's $30,000. I was like, this is a lot. But I ended up getting pregnant naturally using acupuncture and a naturopath who helped me with my thyroid. But long story short, I kind of threw the baby out with the bathwater. I was like, I'm not menopause. They don't know what they're thinking. And I've been one who tends to rebel. So going through postpartum and becoming a mother and menopause at the same time, and my main symptom was insomnia. And I didn't know that was a symptom at the time. I had to finally address my only other addiction I've ever had aside from food, which is overworking. And that was what made me, because I every time I wouldn't take time, I wouldn't sleep. And I had also having joint pain. And I was a year postpartum. I went into the doctor for plantar fasciitis and I was still 30 pounds above my postpartum weight. And I was like, I've been walking. It was a pandemic here and everything was closed. I've been walking, nothing's changed. But it forced me to have to look at my overworking and how that was serving me from a immunity to change perspective.
This is why we're soul sisters, because I also have been overworking, and with a child, it's everything's magnified. But instead of doing a moderate reassessment of life, I'm I'll just go all in on not working.
Well, and that's what we do, right? That's kind of when we're in the socialized mind, right? It's we only have access to the either or, the black and white, the good or bad, right? Initially. Well, you were better than me because I just went down screaming. I don't think it was initially my choice. I was just kept trying to work at the same pace, originally.
I would have periodic, we could call them meltdowns, but it's not, it was just periods of intense overwhelm of how do I keep driving the train that I built?
Yes.
So you said, and this is why I had to hit record right away. So we didn't even get a little pre-chat of what's new in your life. But you said over the last 5 years, you had to redefine your metrics of success, which is ultimately what all these conversations I'm having are really about.
Yes.
So what were those, what were the key changes you made?
Yeah. Well, so we kind of connected over you really liking immunity to change. So I think first it's like, I didn't know what had to, like, I didn't want to believe that it was overworking that had to change, right? It was like, my husband had to help me more. My son had to sleep through the night. Like it was like, right? It was like, no, I'm going to keep up my life.
Yeah. Everybody else just has to do better.
Yes, exactly. And everything has to be perfectly like under my, not control. I'm not a control freak, but it has to be comfortable for me. Right. Like that's really, so I started to say first, I just had to understand what the problem was because I didn't even think that it was overworking. And so, my Truce with Food model is essentially works under the premise that we turn to food when we feel emotionally unsafe or in fear or unsupported. Right. And so I have cleared my relationship with food. It was work at this time. So I took myself on that process and I just had to first realize like, oh, I have this deep story that in order to succeed, I have to be exceptional. And in order to be exceptional, I have to work really hard.
I don't know what you're talking about. I can't relate at all.
Right?
This goes back forever for you, doesn't it?
Yeah. And, it actually ties into health because I was someone who struggled with my weight and health very early on. And so, but I was good at school and I was good at achieving. Right. Yep. So it was like, okay, if I can't get my belonging and worth, it's not guaranteed in this realm. Right. I am fucking smart and I can outwork anybody. And it led to really exceptional things. Like before I, left my corporate job 18 years ago, I was living in Paris. I worked in New York at NBC. Like I had accomplished all of these for my parents were both city school teachers, right? Like I didn't have any connections in like the quote unquote interesting world. Like I really did do exceptional things, but even back then my health was suffering and being a cancer survivor, I was like, wait a second, something's off. I didn't know what it was yet, but I'm just sharing that because working really hard paid off. And so It pays off until it doesn't, right?
I've been cleaning out my studio here and I moved in. It was like a succession of moves. So a lot of my high school, university stuff ended up here, including all my transcripts, letters of recommendation, like all my awards I won, all the financial bursaries I was gifted, all these things. And I was going through it all and reading some of this and reading my own, like why I was deserving of this thing. And I was like, holy cow, like this goes so deep. And I asked my mom, I was like, were you like astounded by how much I achieved? She's like, all you did was work. You were always working. And like forever.
And did you my parents never put any pressure on me. Like
no.
My sister joked like we could have ended up in jail and they'd be like, what did you learn from that?
Yeah, 100%. There was definitely, I think, the bragging that parents and grandparents, like I remember my grandparents lived in Winnipeg and I would go visit them from time to time. And I remember my grandma, they would take me to the airport and it must have been after university because at the check-in at the gate, my grandmother says to the Air Canada agent, did you know my granddaughter won the university gold medal? I wanted to die. But so there was that, which I always kind of thought was funny. But no, my mom would I remember being in university and there was this Mexican restaurant around the corner from us called Hernando's Hideaway that had Margarita Mondays. And my mom always wanted to, meet up with me and my cousin, go for Margarita Mondays at Hernando's Hideaway. I'm like, I have to study. Yeah. Like, what do you have to study for? You have sewing class tomorrow. So I was in fashion school. It did not come from my parents.
Yeah. And I think I have since learned, I thought I was a 5 on the Enneagram, but I have since learned that I'm actually a 3, but I'm the subtype. So I'm vain about not being vain. And I don't want to accomplish for traditional status. I like to accomplish for security reasons. So that's kind of why I didn't type as a 3. But part of me thinks between being middle class and wanting upward mobility in America, between getting rewarded for it and then just liking to challenge myself and then being good at that, it was just this recipe for fuel to keep going.
I've never done the Enneagram. A few guests have mentioned it. Friends of mine have mentioned it. I've looked at it. And every time I start answering the questions, I kind of get annoyed. Like, what do you mean by this? Or what will it say about me if I choose this? Like so can you just give me my number based on that quality?
Yeah. I wonder if you're an 8, perhaps. Eights are very like leadership. That's how I think of eights, and like kind of like I'm not dealing with this. Like that's kind of what I would think that, and just how you are in the world. I would guess that you were an 8, but I'm also not an Enneagram expert. So
Okay. I'm going to start doing a poll of people, and whatever the average is, then I'll just adopt that.
the reason I like the Enneagram more than like some other things is because it's just dynamic. It's because I think most people, and I don't think it's destiny, right? Like I always tell people like, what, like look at any of the number and what do you really need support with? Like I needed support with slowing down and getting more people to help me, which is like what a 3 grows into a healthy 9. So it's like, okay, I'm just going to like use that for where I'm at in my life. Right. And it like 3s benefit from like healthy self-doubt. And I'm always the person, the entrepreneur that's like, this is going to totally work. And then like when it doesn't meet my expectations, I'm like, oh, like, and I blame myself versus being like, that was the first time you did this.
That's
like, why were you so confident?
That's so interesting. So that's so interesting. When I do things that don't work, I'm like, oh, I think I'm just too early. People just don't get it yet.
Oh my God, preach. That's the story of my life.
Yeah. But then I've taken on this new hobby that I'm not fully talking about yet, but I like my first attempt at it. I absolutely wanted perfection, and I am impatient with myself because I'm learning something new from scratch. That's like, that's a hard thing to do when you become really proficient at being proficient at what you do.
Yeah. And the one thing that like really resonated and was helpful for me with the 3, you may want to read it, is that 3s really, and you may be a 3 as I'm thinking about it, like they really feel like their worth is in their doing and accomplishing, and they're very prone to shame. But even when I was like fighting food and like my weight, like there's like shame about having shame. Like I never, like I always felt very confident in certain areas. And then the areas that I was vulnerable, that felt vulnerable to me, like finding meaningful work or meeting a partner. This was early 20s, my health. It was just like, it was like, I don't know. It was like, it's my weight. Once my weight's figured, like I couldn't hold the shame. So I projected it and put it into these buckets.
So what were like, I want to go back because we keep.
Oh yeah. To the overworking. Yeah. So
we're like 2 hens in the hen house.
Yeah.
So what these metrics? So the overworking had to shift. What else?
Yeah. So I realized like, oh, like and again, when we are in our stories, we're kind of in like what society has told us, right? It's cultural conditioning, right? So you don't have that flexibility to think about what you want. It's like, oh, I was just focused on working more, being more productive and accomplishing more. And I loved your episode about finances and saying like, so many of us don't even know what enough is, right? And for me, like being in the we were very early to the online world. It was like, 6 figures, right? It's like, oh, I mean, this was like before inflation.
And I was like, 6-figure thing. That was that was the thing.
Yeah. And I had reached that. And, I knew intellectually, I was like, this is what people do to their weight, right? Like once I reached this number, like I knew intellectually, but I was like, also because I know immunity to change, I'm like, I still have to go through the process because it's one thing to know it. It's one thing to embody it. So for me, I started to have to unpack like, okay, I'm measuring busyness, not impact. Like what I really care about is impact. Then I was like, oh, how do I want to show up as a parent? I don't want to be sleep deprived and always feeling like, okay, I got to sneak in a couple emails, and I wanted to be present with my son, Essa. And so I think too, when you have strong success in an area, that identity gets like overworked like a muscle. And so then it's easy to burn out because you're putting all your worth in that basket. So I had to start just caring about things other than my work output and accomplishment. It was patience. It was how vital do I feel in my body? Because I did not feel vital because I didn't know I was like going through menopause. And health is like you has always, because we haven't had it all the time, it's a huge metric for me. So my health, my impact instead of just being busy. And then I wanted to work less and make more money if I'm, being candid. And so I had to figure out what was kind of the belief structure, which was you have to work really hard, was actually getting in the way of me stopping and stepping back and reevaluating my business model.
So with those specific things you are now measuring, let's take health. How did you measure if you were improving that metric of health?
Yes, I love this question. So for me, my big issue was sleep. And so I actually had to hire a functional nutritionist to help me with my insomnia because it was like I tried everything I knew. So it was, am I sleeping better? Do I have better quality of energy even on the nights that I don't sleep? And I really had to, and then it started out that kind of survival mode. And then I started to realize how important the various kinds of rest are aside from just sleep. And so it was like, oh, am I getting in nature? Like that regulates me in this way that I need. It's like, am I taking my walks? Am I getting my sunlight? And so then it became about vitality. So it went from like, do I feel alive? Am I receiving creative ideas while I'm out? So it became about bigger than just kind of this narrow idea of rest being just about how much sleep you get, but like, do I really feel rested? And I think another word is resourced. Like, do I feel like, oh my God, like, when my son didn't sleep through the night until he was like 2, and then he did, and then he didn't, but it was just kind of like, do I have patience when it's like, in the middle of the night, like, do I feel like, am I spiraling or do I have something left that this isn't the end of the world, that he's not sleeping again and I'm not sleeping again? So
it's really interesting. I've also been challenged with sleep probably my whole life.
Oh,
yes. I remember even as a child, I started going to overnight camp pretty young, like after, maybe not young by today's standards because kids go really young, but after grade 4, I think, like between 4th and 5th grade was when I first went to overnight camp. And I just remember I loved it, but I was always the last to fall asleep. Everyone else had to be quiet before I could fall asleep. And then I remember in my early corporate days when it really got bad, waking up at 4 a.m, and that was kind of it. And then, then you throw a baby into the mix, and it took a long time to re-regulate after that, if I can even call it that. But what I found was even when I was exhausted, I always had the capacity to sit down and do really good work. And it's the only thing I felt like I could do efficiently when I was that exhausted, which perpetuates a really challenging cycle because it's a reward in a lot of ways that well, I don't need to worry about sleep because I can still work and I can still be effective at working. Even if everything else is like, don't have a lot of patience and can't remember, where did I put the thing that I had just been looking for, or, those kinds of things were failing, but I could still run a great company. I have a quick little intermission for this episode, or is it an intermission? I want to invite you to please head over to courageouspivot.com and subscribe there. There is a lot brewing around the Courageous Pivot, and I'm working on opening up a little inner circle community. And the plan as of today is to start offering little workshops that only the inner circle will be invited to participate in, as well as the opportunity perhaps for live in-person events. Could it be? Could it be? It might just be. I'm also going to be sharing a little more about my own personal pivots, as well as some updates from our guests that have been on the show. So you may have heard the announcement to follow me on Substack. Well, we're changing course now. We are pivoting, and the action is over at courageouspivot.com. So go over there, get on the list. You'll get each episode dropped to your inbox, as well as exclusive first dibs access to everything that will be created in and around the idea of Courageous Pivot, doing that work, the developing framework, and of course, the beautiful community. I cannot wait to see you over there. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah. You just made me think of something else that I was forced to look at is my value of efficiency. Because I was like, okay, being with kids is inherently inefficient. Like you can't afford. So, in immunity change, it's about having flexibility with your values. It's not like every hammer has a nail. But I had to realize, like, even I create a lot of content for my courses and stuff. And it's like, creativity is not efficient, right? And like, I may not be able, like, I had to extend deadlines, right? I had to essentially release my own timing expectations. Yeah. So that was something that I used to measure, like, okay, this is going to take this many, how fast does it get done? And now it was like, when does it want to be done?
I think the best programming or reconditioning I've had for that specific thing happened in the last 8 months. And I highly recommend this to everybody, is especially with the nature of the world we live in right now. But I started crocheting 2 years ago, but I took on a blanket. It was 241 stitches across. So for those who like don't know what that's the width of a queen size bed.
Oh, wow.
So basically, I made a blanket the size of a queen size bed, width and length. It took 7 to 8 months. I had to unravel a whole bunch, but it legitimately reconditioned how long I think something needs to take me to work on. I could only do a couple lines a day because a couple rows because my hands would get sore. I wasn't, proficient at it. And it wasn't something that could be rushed. Like, I can't stress enough the value of taking on something that is excruciatingly slow. And I almost raising a child, like, the toddler going for a walk, like in 45 minutes, you're lucky if you get down one block. And I remember I used to be like, okay, come on, buddy, let's go. But it takes what it takes.
Yeah. And I realized that, like, when we're rushing and we have, like, I call it the need for speed, like, we're measuring and this is actually one of the protection patterns I work on with people in their stories. It's like, what you're unconsciously measuring is just more. Right. And then, like, you end up missing out on what's there, which perpetuates, I want more, versus when you were crocheting, even though it was less, did it feel like more because you were present?
It felt like more, but it also reminded me of how enjoyable and beautiful and soul nourishing and nervous system balancing being in the process is.
Yeah.
It wasn't just chasing the dopamine of the completion, of the post, of the response, of, all the things we're so conditioned to strive for.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, I always use food metaphors, but it's like you can savor the process. And it's like when you can really savor, things feel differently when you slow down and cook them, or you are at a slower meal with company you love, right? Like it actually like lands, you can feel it.
Yes. And
when you're only focusing on more, and you aren't clear on what is enough, it's just never enough. And then you never feel enough. So it just keeps this like endless cycle. And then you end up being like, as I was at like 42 years old, being like, oh my God. Like, I mean, again, I went down fighting. It was probably the past couple of years. I'm like, why was I working so much? Like, why didn't I know that, like, it is about quality, not just quantity,
We had a song, Josh and I make up jingles a lot, but we had a song called We're Having Dinner at 9:00. Dinner at 9, because we were working nonstop. I mean, the result, unfortunately / fortunately, is it did pay off. Like, we hustled, and now we have so much flexibility and freedom.
Yeah.
But, at what cost? And also, there was for sure a different way we could have gone through it.
Yeah. Well, and then it's also composting that, right? That learning. And we also, like, again, my work is so rooted in developmental, like, psychology, which actually maps really beautifully, I think, with spirituality. And it's kind of like the first half of life is, ego gets a bad rap, but it's about developing a sense that you can exert your will on the world, right? It's like, okay, I can have a healthy ego. I know I can build a company, start a company, like heal myself from, whatever it is. And then the second half of life is like, okay, now that I know I can do that, how do I want to relate to that? And how do I want to really feel that? So we also have to give ourselves, like, we're kind of developmentally appropriate.
I know. It's like I've worked out that I could beat the system. Now I'm like, okay, good. I don't need to prove that anymore. That's done.
Yeah, right. Versus always wondering,
So I want to go back to the metrics you were measuring, but more so you've mentioned immunity to change a few times. I have a whole episode, so everyone needs to listen to that episode for sure, because it's a kind of a 25-minute breakdown of what this process is. But maybe you can also just give a little summary of it and we'll first talk about how you applied it for yourself and then how you actually work with clients.
Yeah. So because I'm sure a lot of people, like health that listen to your podcast, I know you're pivoting, but still.
It's really amazing how many people are coming along this journey from the nutrition, but what you do, like what I do, my courses were never just about food. That was like the gateway in. It will revolutionize everything once you get a handle on, one core component of your survival. If you're effective with that, it will translate. So, but yes, go for it. Lots of help.
And even your approach of like, what I loved about your approach and why I've used your recipe, it's like learn the foundations, then you have flexibility right within there versus like, so you were even kind of teaching people to be self-authoring, which is what immunity change is. So immunity to change, the book itself is kind of dry.
I said that too. It's not good. It almost feels like it was a blog post that turned into a really long book. Dare I say it? Like there's a few of those books out there that like could have stayed just the, 3,000 word blog post.
But I think it's on the flap of the jacket or in the book. It's used in organizations, but they essentially open with this statistic that like, how many people, Megan, do you think who have a heart attack will actually change their diet and lifestyle? And a heart attack is one thing that we know diet and lifestyle has a lot of impact on.
Well, I feel like the average person would say like 50%. I'm going to go with like maybe 5.
Yeah. So it was 1 out of 7 people who've actually almost died, right, will actually make changes. And so it's kind of like, well, why is change so hard? And what we focus on as a culture, right, is like the symptoms, like why are we resisting change? Let's focus on a habit hack here and there. But all of our behaviors, I shouldn't say all, there's never all, but most of our ingrained behaviors, like even you saying like crocheting reoriented me, right? The need for speed, the rushing, right? All of that is really coming out of emotional stories that protect these identities that we really like about ourselves, right? Who doesn't love feeling accomplished? Who doesn't, perfectionism is something I work on with clients, but it's like perfectionists love perfectionism. It gives them really great things, right? If you people please, right? It's like, oh my God, you never have to deal with people's disappointment, right? Like there's so much great stuff that happens from these like quote unquote, negative patterns that we're told to admonish, right? Banish, but they are so hard to do because they're giving us something.
Yeah.
So for me, again, what I looked at was, okay, I need to stop overworking. Like, and I can't do it. I know intellectually the cost, right? And this is like what immunity to change is really good at, like bridging the gap between knowing what you have to do or what you want to do and actually doing it. And so I was like, but I can't stop overworking. So what I realized was whenever I would try to log off, right? When our nanny left, it was a pandemic. So we had a nanny and she was actually living with us, but we like, okay, when I would log off for that, or I was like, okay, this weekend, I'm just going to like be in the zone of mothering, but then I'm on the computer, right? It's like, whenever I would do that, what would come up for me was like feelings of anxiety, of uncertainty. And it was like, oh my God, well, what is that feeling state attached to? What risk is that attached to? And for me, it was this risk of I'm going to be average. I'm not going to be exceptional. And so what I realized is my protection pattern is what I call the compete strategy. Is like, I have this binary of rest, slowing down is lazy and leads to failure. And hustle culture, we'll just say, leads to the type of success that I wanted. And so I was in this binary of hustle culture, good, rest, pleasure, free time, bad.
I'd always look at people reading books under trees, like on a Wednesday at like 1:30 p.m.
Yeah.
And part of me was like, what is their life that they're both able to just go sit under a tree and read a book? And also, how do I get in that mindset that I would give myself permission and not like, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z, like to earn it, but that to have a moment of peace in the day to do something just for myself was more than acceptable.
Yeah. Well, and I think you just hit the nail on the head, because what I've realized, because work a lot on cultural conditioning with people, like what's actually truth versus what we've normalized. And I know, at least in the States, we have a very puritanical Protestantism influence. Like, I'm not religious, but like this idea that you have to earn your worth is really rooted in so much of why we do the things we don't want to be doing, whether it's eating, overworking, drinking. It's like, oh my God, if I have feelings that are messy, right? Or it's like, I'm a bad person, right? Or if I don't know, if I'm struggling with my health, it's like, I'm a bad person. I don't know. There's just so much that the cultural conditioning is like, you always got to be improving and fixing and all that stuff. So if you're someone who's like unlearned that, you can you're like, it's joy is part of why we're here. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. But what ends up happening in terms of or as you would say in Canada, process, is that I love how you guys talk, is what would come, why we stay stuck in these loops is I would judge the person under the tree. I would say, oh, must be nice. You must have a trust fund. Not me. I've done it all myself, which obviously I haven't, but that's what I'm telling myself, right? So because I have to judge myself and other people to keep the whole story and the whole identity going. So it's not like we're like, oh, I really want to be sitting under that tree. It's must be nice. Whatever your judgment is based on. In my case, it would be like judging average people.
Yeah, I get that. And part of me too is like, well, there's a price to pay for that too, is how I would see it.
Yeah. And what we're trying to do in Immunity to Change is, it's called Increase Our Complexity Fitness, which is essentially being able to have flexibility, right? Like if you read under a tree every day, right? And it's like, there are times that you have to hustle, right? But when that's the only mode you have, and then like, even in my work, this is very common with a lot of my clients, one of the big triggers for people to eat is being tired. And we've even had to like rename, rather than rest, it's like replenishment, because people are like, when I think of rest, I think of sitting on my couch, watching Netflix and zoning out with food. And it's like, oh my God, because I'm not even in my body enough to know when I need a break, that then I go, well, I can't just rest. I can't just lay on the couch. And it's like, that's not necessarily rest. That's not necessarily replenishing. So we end up not having the flexibility to know what is, like, quote unquote, the middle path, I joke moderation is the new radical, of like, when do I need to hustle? But it doesn't even feel like hustling because it's for a short period of time versus it being always. And then how does rest actually feed my productivity? Right.
That's a
like,
huge one.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be holding the and.
Yeah. And, mentioning, like, you use the word replenishment, and that's such a nourishing word too, that when people think like, I just need to, the scroll on the phone or the Netflix or whatever it is what you're actually doing is completely disassociating from your body, your mind, your life, your heart, all your to-do list. Like, it's just a way of escape. And I think it's really common too. And, we know we're speaking to adults on the show, but with teenagers, like children and teenagers are getting in those habits too. And I even see with my son, whenever he's sort of tired or bored, he's like, can I watch something? Is his immediate go-to. And I was like, well, are you thirsty? Like, are you hydrated? Are you actually just hungry? Like, what is the actual need you have in your body? And sometimes it's legit to, rest, lay down, but we're confusing what the actual need is.
Yes. And then like when we're, doing Netflix and food and, or overworking, whatever it is, we don't really start to connect the value of rest. Right. And then it's like, we continue to judge it, and we stay in this, and we judge other people who are doing it, or, whatever it is.
I have a friend who does production, like high level television film production, and he has said that Netflix says that their main competition aren't other streaming services, it's sleep.
Wow.
Don't quote me. Like, I don't know that came out of the words of the CEO of Netflix, but that was the general consensus of the comment was, and that's true.
Yeah. This is when I start to feel like
Yes.
I am weird because I'm like, oh my God, because I've had sleep issues, I protect my sleep so much that I'm like, oh my God, I can't even like stay up. Like I have books at night and I read like 2 pages and I'm like,
100%. So let's talk about, you work with clients from a nutrition perspective, but obviously it's a breakdown of a lot of this programming. But I wanted to talk about the courageous pivot most people need to make towards health.
Oh.
How do you introduce the need for this shift? Like, you've talked about like shifting from the idea of what rest is versus what replenishment is and how we nourish our body. So how do you move a client through this process using, say, the micro experiments that are in immunity change to address the competing commitments we make that go directly against everything we say we want in life?
Yeah, right.
Small question.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, let me just back up really quickly, is that one of the premises of developmental psychology, which immunity to change is kind of under that umbrella, is that people would never do this work if it weren't for something called optimal conflict. So optimal conflict is like, I think of it metaphorically like plantar fasciitis because I had it for a bit. And it's like, you cannot ignore plantar fasciitis. Like it hurts every time you do it. So people will only do this work if they have some sort of pain that they experience day in and day out, right? It could be, I'm in debt, right? Or I'm always hustling, right? I'm overworking because I never know if I have enough money. For my clients, it's food, right? So it's like, okay, I have this food pain point. And so it can, and for some people, drinking, right? Even if they're not going through a formal immunity to change process, they have to look at the emotions underneath why they're drinking, right? So, and I actually train other people. I have a truce coaching certification. I've had people apply this model to religious priests and I'm forgetting the female name of them. Oh my God. Religious like leaders who are caregiving burnout, right? Like they're taking care of everybody else. And then it feels like, but then they're burning out, right? So it can be any sort. I have some people who, I'm trying to think of other people I've certified who, it's work, it's entrepreneurship, right? Like I want to make a change in my business, but I can't do it, right? For some reason, I need to be more visible, but I can't do it or whatever. So anytime there's a knowing but not doing gap, immunity to change applies to that because of the optimal conflict. People are actually willing to go deeper and look at that.
So I just want to highlight that. So you said it's the knowing but not doing. Like, there's something that you need to do. You might even know what it is you need to do, and you're not doing it.
Yeah. And what's happening is it's your emotional immune system is putting that. People try to control themselves more. They try to habit hack, habit stack, reframe, but it's this physiologic process and why I love it is it's an integration. It's your body and your heart. It's your heart and your brain that are saying, this is unsafe to make this change. So what I say to people, and what's particularly interesting about food, is that food stimulates attachment chemicals. And so and Dr. Deborah McNamara, she's Canadian. She is like, it's the one parenting book I've read. It's called Rest, Play, Grow. But she has another book out called Nourished. And she has this great quote that says, food essentially nothing is addictive as something that almost works. And food stimulates attachment chemicals, but it doesn't satiate the deeper belonging needs we have. Whoa. And so, right?
So nothing is as addictive as something that almost works.
Yes.
Whoa. Okay. Just got like chills a little bit.
It's because it's true, right?
Yes, it is true.
And so what it's doing, I have chills now too, is food especially is soothing just enough, right? This alarm that I'm emotionally unsafe. I don't matter in some way, right? I look weak, I look vulnerable, whatever it is, right? But we could also apply that to overworking, right? Like, where am I going to get my medals from? Where am I going to get the recognition from? And so with my clients, I work with clients who, you're a business owner, they're more mature, not from like an age standpoint, but they're people who have tried a lot of things, right? So they're like, okay, something deeper is going on. I don't think this is just, I've done the functional approach. I've done like, but I'm having a hard time keeping it all up, right? And so I'm very clear that like this, I mean, as much as you can explain what it is without going, because it's such an experiential process that like, okay, why you're going to food makes sense. And there's these root reasons, there's these root triggers that alarm your system, and no amount of keeping food in the house, not keeping it in the house, taking 5 deep breaths, like you feel isolated and alone in some way. And many of my clients, they're eating in secret, right? They're like, I can't wait to go home. And these are people who are highly functional, right? So it's the willpower and discipline narrative doesn't really stack up. And that was my case as well, right? Like, why am I, now that I've healed my gut and healed my depression and IBS and acne, why am I binging on sugar, during my scanxiety season for cancer when I know cancer feeds on sugar? Like, what the fuck? Like, why am I doing this? And so with them, I'm clear that like, we're going to address the root causes of why it makes sense that you're doing this. And so that's kind of like people are already deciding, right? Do I really want to do this? And because I loved how transformative you found the process, is that you can't really know what it is until you go through it, right?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, when I went through it, it was a member of my mastermind group who is he's one of the world's leading coaches. I don't know how this happened that I ended up in a 4-person group with this person. And I was so annoyed during the process, sort of like, you don't know me. Like, you think this isn't going to do anything? Like, I hold things very close. Like, I take my luggage, I packed up my baggage, I wear it on my back. I don't unzip it for anyone,
Mm.
But then, it's a beautiful group that we're in, and I did unpack it, and I went through the experiments one by one. And like you said, you can't go back because what you're doing is you're testing almost like your greatest fear in a very safe way.
Yes. Yeah. So you can have more flexibility instead of falling back on old patterns. And I love that you brought that up, because I'm in a current group. I have a current group of clients, and part of what I do for people is we do this called second wind experiment before we even start the program, because I know that people are going to have those kind of thoughts, which is actually what's keeping you from changing, right? Like, and everyone, and it's like, okay, in this group, like, we're not defining success, because I don't give people any rules. There's no rule. I'm a rebel. There's no rules to follow. And the way that my master's is in adult development, like, adults they have to want to make the change. No one likes being told what to do as an adult. And so I'm like, showing up in this class is like C+ effort, and everyone gets like really icky, like, ew, C+, but I'm like, also like, here's kind of some of the things that are going to come up is like, you're going to compare yourself to other people and say like, this doesn't relate to me, or I'm falling behind from this person, or like, I already know everything. Right. And so we've actually had this really beautiful conversation about how vulnerable it is to want to change something that has historically been really hard, and to open your heart up again to say, could this time be different? And so that's so vulnerable that of course you're going to make all these judgments of like that protect yourself, but that also make you, it's that seesaw of like, here's how I'm exceptional, but here's how I also suck, right? I'm like exceptional in a good and bad way. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that comes up in my groups a lot. People like protecting themselves from looking at the deeper stories by just thinking they know everything. And it's like, this is not an intellectual exercise. It's actually, okay, I may know this, but what's happening underneath that keeps this whole thought process like going? And it's strong feelings.
So you mentioned how adults and in adult psychology, they have to want it. And we know this. We know we've all had you're in clinical practice. So is my husband still. And we still get, my husband needs to come see you, right? So going through the immunity change and working with your clients, and 1 in 7, as you said, will change their diet even after having a heart attack, knowing their diet could save their life, and still they won't do it. How can we support, or how can someone support themselves, if they know they should do something, they do want it,
Mhm.
but whatever their but might be, to kind of move through to make that next step, which, is that courageous pivot to either taking ownership and responsibility over your health or your finances or your relationship or your, the greater scheme of life?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And I think I'm going to answer it with the question, because when you're trying to change, if you're doing something that you know you should, there's often a lot of guilt and shame. And it's really hard to look at yourself from that place, as someone who's learned that I'm very susceptible to shame, and want to like just charge it to everyone else has to change. I think the first question is to ask is like, why does this make sense? Why does it make sense that it's so hard to change?
Right.
And that is like what I call like a constructive self-compassion question of like, wait a second, maybe what I'm doing is the best attempt at wholeness based on the level of awareness that I have right now. Because culturally, and this, Josh knows this, we are not a root cause resolution culture, right?
No.
It's like, no, even again, not all behavior change, there's flexibility, but it's like when people focus on children's behavior versus the emotional needs that are underneath, it's like behavior. And again, this is not, there's never an always and never, but it's like, especially raising a toddler, I'm just like, oh my God, there's no logic on board, right? Like there is an emotional need in this outburst that they need support. But then and this actually came up in my group of people. I work with people who tend to be like 35 and older. And it's like growing up in the 80s or 90s, if you were ever struggling, you went to your room, right? I've had Canadian clients who were in French schools and would struggle with French and they were put out in the hallway, right? So we relationally have been taught that we should isolate ourselves, right? So I think it's like, why does this make sense? And then finding someone who, with that connection, to actually turn off that immunity, that alarm system in someone's emotional immune system, that can help you see why what you're doing makes sense and how you can move through it, because you had that safety of belonging in the relationship itself. But you first have to start with, why does this make sense? Why is it so hard to change?
Right. So then what?
Yeah.
Like then what? So you were the quote bad kid in class. Was being sent to the hall like a Canadian thing only?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't really struggle in school, so I don't know, but I do know my sister, who is like brilliant. She was like put in like the lower reading class, even
Right.
though it was because she like had trouble sitting still,
Yeah.
but she's like still, and she was actually put in like the gifted and talented program. And like, so, I mean, it's like, I'm not just saying she's brilliant because she's my sister, but I think that kind of stuff. And she's always like, part of why I love her is she has never given up what anyone thinks. Like it's taken me so long to get to where she was in the beginning. So I think there's pros and cons of that. But I know in American schools, like, depending on where you went, like my husband went to an inner city school and like he was put in gifted and talented, but then was like kind of beat up for that. So it depends on where I guess the context, but I think any of us in the 80s, 90s, like emotional intelligence wasn't quite online. So it was a lot of like, go to your room or, and again, I love my parents, but I remember one time complaining and my dad was like, here's the number for child youth services. Like call them. No one is going to come pick you. Like, so there was no like, why are you upset? And I didn't act out a lot, So, and again, I love my parents. This is not about them, but I'm just saying that the overall tone was not like, let's process this. Do you know what I mean?
I once asked my mom, I was like, how come we were never grounded? She's like, I didn't want you here all the time.
Yeah.
That's how parenting was. I think in a lot of ways it was really effective. Because you had to deal with the consequences of your actions. And now we have adults who don't seem to understand that their life is the consequences of their actions. Even when there are extenuating circumstances beyond your control entirely, we still get to choose how we respond and move through it.
Yeah, Laura McGowan, who is one of my favorite writers, she's gotten sober and she writes these. And so I work with a lot of sober people because once people get off alcohol, either food was their original issue or then it becomes one. But she has kind of these rules, and like number one is like, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Yeah.
And I just love that because it's like, I'm so often like, my son's often like, that's not fair. And I'm like, I mean, he doesn't understand what fair quite means yet, but I'm just like, when do I tell him like life isn't fair? Like we want it to be, I think, as humans, but it's not. But the freedom that you have is an agency and choice and taking responsibility. But it doesn't have to be your fault, but it's still, I love how Laura says that it is your responsibility.
Yeah. We say to our son when he like doesn't want to do something that he needs to do, it's like not everything that you get to do in life you're going to find fun or enjoyable, and you still get to do the work. You still have to do the work. I try not to use like the have tos, but it's a privilege that we get to sit here and do this together, and it's going to offer X, Y, and Z positive outcome because of it. But it's teaching that self-responsibility that that is so important to growth at every age. So the shift then with health, the little experiments, like what is the first, like what is something someone can do who says like, I've tried, I've had the heart attack, I've had the multiple cancers, I'm going through cancer treatment, I've got the full systemic inflammation, my short-term memory is going, like any number of things that we've normalized because they're so common.
Yeah.
How do they move into the change?
Yeah. So part of what immunity, I'm just going to give a little theory and then a practicality because sometimes it helps frame it, is that what's been happening culturally is that we have defined health in terms of years extended. Okay. So like, okay, care about this in like 30, right? Like if you make these changes now in your 40s, right? Like in 20 years, you may live 10 years longer. And adults have so many other competing commitments that is like, well, I got to pay the bills today. Okay. My kid is melting. I got to go pick my kid up from school today. I can't go walk. Okay. So that's one issue. The other issue is that, at least in the States, health, and if you grew up in the 80s, 90s, probably early 2000s, health has only been defined in terms of weight loss. Yeah. Okay. So it's like all we know, and this was my big revelation when I found immunity to change, found, health. When I reclaimed my health now 20 years ago, it was like, oh my God, how did I not know food could be medicine? Like, because all I was reading about was calories and fat and calorie deficit. And it was like, whoa, I didn't know food could be medicine as well, right? It can be calories. And so it's about including and transcending. So what the real work is getting people to understand health is more about weight than weight. So it's fine if you want to lose weight, but for change to actually stick and you change habits, adults need what I call quick fixes. They need to see some sort of improvement relatively quickly to keep them interested. So trying to tell people that you might get 30 years, you might live into your 70s when you're 40, that's too far of a rewards loop, right? Yeah. And then only making it about weight, it's like, okay, bodies change, weight, like, believe it or not, weight alone is not enough, even though there's thin privilege and all this kind of stuff. So what you have to start doing is literally, like we could take blood sugar, for example, and I do this in my Freedom from Cravings program, is, okay, I want you to eat, I have people eat 2 different breakfasts. Okay. And I want you to just connect for the next 1 to 3 hours. What breakfast makes you feel calm? What makes you feel satisfied? Which one eliminates your cravings? Just which one gives you more energy? And when you start to do that, you're taking it out of, this could help you in 30 years. You're taking it out of weight, right? Now, of course, if you have more energy, if you're more satisfied, if you have less cravings, you can also lose weight. It's holding the and, it's not either or. But like so many clients, right? Like when they take that program and it's a self-study, they're just like, oh my God, like my focus, my ADHD got better, right? Or things that they didn't even know could happen. One client was like, oh my God, my period cramps and my moods, like the second half of my cycle got better. it's like, who doesn't want to make their life easier? Right. Like those are kind of the quick fixes that and like, I'll give you an example. Like I was someone who I've always been active, but like once I realized I kind of, had a truce with my weight like 20, maybe like 15 years ago. And I've always like, I'd moved my body here and there. And when I wanted to get pregnant, I walked a lot. I was in the sun a lot, in the forest, biome breaths, all the things. But I was like, walking doesn't count. I had this like vestige of diet culture. It was like, oh my God. Then my sleep coach was like, I want you to take walking breaks to bring your cortisol down in menopause so you can sleep better. And it was like, how did I not know walking is like the best thing in my life now, right? It's like, at first it was like, okay, this is again to get sleep. And now it's like, this is Carlos. I joke with Carlos, my husband. I'm like, I'm going to just like jiggle everything out, right? Like I wrote all morning and now I need it to like simmer and integrate. And so it's like, oh my God, walking, I do now, not even if it helps me with sleep, but because it helps my creativity, it helps me think sharper. It's great for longevity, which is important to me. And it does help me with my weight, right? It's like all of these things.
And the blood sugar balance.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes, exactly.
Which is like another little experiment you can do if you're tracking your blood glucose is to go for a walk after a meal.
Yeah. But the thing is, and this is what I think is sometimes challenging for people when they're only focused on those like quantitative metrics is like, oh, this is good, right? This is good to lower it. But like, what's the instant benefit to me that is like, that I can actually carry in through my day? Yeah. So you have to start changing. Yes, into your experience. And so once you can connect, like, this is just making my life easier and better, most people want to keep that up.
Right. We'd like to think. Like, I like to think we all want to be more whole. But there is that self-sabotage that can creep in every facet.
But I think I look at self-sabotage as self-protection. So to me, it's like you can work on this health stuff, right? And I think this is part of what you're doing when you do immunity to change work is you're trying to build what's called complexity fitness. So it's kind of like when I first found functional medicine, I was like, this is the answer. Like my IBS got better, my skin cleared up, my depression got lifted, like all of the stuff that I had thrown everything Western medicine had to it, right? Didn't clear up. But then like I couldn't keep those results up. And it was because of this emotional stuff. So it's like I had to hold the complexity that it wasn't just food. It wasn't just exercise. It was also this emotional stuff that is really the issue. That and relationally, you can even think about it physiologically. Like it's like, oh my God, when you change these stories, your stress levels just improve dramatically because you're more in choice. So anytime there's like some level of self-sabotage, and even like you can look at what feels threatening about feeling so good, right?
After you've done the experiment, the breakfast experiment, and everyone can go do this now.
Yeah.
How do you actually tap into the emotional stuff? Like, how do you go there?
Yeah. Well, so so the way that my programs are set up is like, okay, Truce with Food is the umbrella. And then there's like 2 self-studies because I'm really about people saying, what is the pain point that I think I have? I mean, that they have, right? So like some people might start with just understanding food as safety, understanding the triggers. It's like the emotional stuff, right? Some people may be like, I have so many cravings. I have to address that first. But it's all kind of self-directed. And so then if people want to go more from there, then it's like, okay, let's start to look at what these triggers are and what needs need to be met. And that starts to give a lot of people like realizing like one of the big triggers is tired. And it's like, this actually came up in my group. Oh my God, I'm tired, not because I'm not getting enough sleep, but I don't have enough agency. And I'm making choices. I'm not thinking about what I want to get out of life, right? Out of an experience. I get overwhelmed and then I go eat or I go drink till kind of, so it's then starting to recognize, oh, I have more choices than I thought. This really isn't about food. Cause I have a lot of clients like, I've heard it's not about I heard, 80% of the time it's not about food, but that's annoying. But then by the end of Truce with Food consistency, which is 3 months, it's like, oh, It really is 80% of the time about the food. So what ends up happening is as people do this, it's like, I want more of that. I want more freedom. I want more agency. I want more life on my terms. And then they really get emotionally that this is what will give them that. But then some people opt out too. Like it's, I have about 40% of people who go from Truce with Food consistency to Truce with Food for good, which is the 6-month deeper dive of the stories. Does that answer your question? It's kind of like you have to self-select as you go.
Yes. I mean, there's no one answer for every human on the planet for anything. So
yeah. It's what pain point do you want to address right now? Because it has to be your choice. Because I'll just say one more thing. So much of immunity to change is getting people to realize there's no outside authority that has all the answers, right? That's part of the developmental process is like, there's no perfect answer. Everything depends. It depends.
I think that what can be so challenging about all of this for a lot of people is the conditioning that we've all received that our lives actually are dictated by an outside authority. We've allowed our lives to be hugely dictated and influenced by whether it's a governmental, a religious, familial, internet influencers, like whatever it is, we believe somehow that there's an authority that has to give us permission or make these decisions for us. And regaining that agency, I think can be kind of terrifying because it also goes hand in hand with needing to take responsibility.
Yeah. And it's also, I've been thinking a lot about this lately because developmentally, the first 20, 25 years of our lives, at least in, I would say European American culture and North American culture, Canada's, you actually have to look to an outside authority. Like you cannot, it's part of the developmental process to say, how can I secure my belonging? I can't meet my own needs. So I need to figure out outside, I'm observing all the time, what's getting rewarded, what's getting penalized, right? Like that's just part of it. And I've been thinking about how we don't have these rites of passage or cultural support for when people can, puberty, right? It's like girls all of a sudden are like, oh my God, my sexuality is something that is dangerous, right? Instead of saying like, oh my God, you can grow into, there's more of you here, right? It's like, oh my God. And then, marriage becomes about like the wedding and then the napkins and I don't know what people, like, but it's like, wait a second, this is a commitment like this, right? And then I think about childbirth, right? Like, at least in America, it's like cover your ass medicine a lot in the hospital, right? And again, childbirth can be inherently dangerous, but as they show that an empowering birth for women is not what choices that they made, but that they felt in choice.
Yeah.
And I had such an empowering birth. And it was like, oh my God. And again, it doesn't mean everything goes your way all the time. I risked out of the midwife center before I even got there, right? But I was in choice. And I think about how that has made me such a more confident mother in a way, because I also knew to challenge the system in a way, right? Like even healing, right? Having all these diagnoses was this initiation. And so overworking initiation. So I think we've missed a lot of what used to be initiations, right? And there was cultural support. Like if you did deep dive into depression in your 20s, right? Like, was there ever a time maybe in more whole cultures where it was like, you need support here. What's happening, And so I think we miss a lot of the chances for this agency because we're just not supported culturally. Instead, it's, there's something wrong with you instead of this could be an opening.
Yeah. I mean, there's also
this is something I've recently been thinking about.
No, I mean, there's the institutionalization of everything as well. Of if you go to the doctor, you can only ask one question, at least here in Canada. Like there's a sign up. Like you could have waited 6 months to see the specialist and there'll be a sign. And I witnessed it because I've been in that. You're permitted to ask one question in this appointment.
What?
Yes. And then there's in school, like raise your hand if you have a question, yes. But how dare you ask a question that could challenge the intelligence of the person who's standing at the front of the class? So there is a suppression of critical thinking inherent in so many of the systems that we kind of need still so far for now, whatever, however you want to put it, not everyone has the capacity to take their whole life out of these systems.
Yeah.
Although,
No, you're
I
right. I
do
mean,
talk a lot about how we can liberate ourselves from them, but that critical thinking piece and, like, to your point, these rituals, these milestone moments in your
yeah.
life, the challenges, it's all part of how we can become confident, self-sufficient humans so that we
Yeah.
don't actually ever divert so far from our own wholeness.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's why I think it's so important for people to realize, if they're making a courageous pivot, right? It's like, yeah, it's going to be scary. And you're going to, on the other side of it is like, you're going to get to meet more of who you are. Like you can land it on your own terms if you understand the terrain, and it's so annoying, but it's like, it's not like what you end up with, but it is who you become, and having full access to so many choices. Like I was saying to, a friend who's like, what are you thinking about your birthday? And I was like, I'm just astounded that like my idea of success, I would have never thought this 3 or 4 years ago, is that like, if I want to go on a bike ride and it's sunny at like 1 in the afternoon or like in the morning, I'm going. Like I don't, like the old me would have been like, no, I have to work. I'm like, I love the city I live in. I love the school that we're sending my son to. All of these things that are just like quote unquote ordinary have become so magical to me that I have. And I was actually thinking about, because I was listening to your other podcast about financial, like what is enough. And I was thinking about, like, a couple years ago, I said to myself, like, what is wealth, right? Like the socialized definition of wealth is like how much money you have. But I was like, money counts, especially here in America. You have to like have money here. It's expensive to live here. And I was like, but my number one criteria for wealth is like freedom of my time. I want agency over my time. And that's like who I am. I just don't, I wish sometimes that I cared more about money. Do you know what I mean? Especially when I look at the private school bill of what I'm paying to send my son to a private school. But I'm like, at the end of the day, this is me. Like, I want freedom over my time.
How do you guide your clients when they come to the realization, as I believe everyone on any kind of physiological health journey does, that once you address that, you kind of have to address the fact that you might be living out of alignment with your soul?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, at least in my experience, because some of my clients, they do the emotional work first and then physical stuff will clear up. I mean, that's what's really fascinating. I've seen so many people, their digestion, right? It's like, oh my God, I've taken all the probiotics, I've done this. But like when I actually feel safer because I'm in choice with how I'm showing up, my digestion is fine. We call them like, certain location poops. It's like, oh my God, like those poops are so good, right? It's not about, more restriction. So I think.
Wait, what did you just say? The certain location poops?
Yeah. Someone was like, oh my God, they were at MIT for this like training, and so they called them MIT poops because they felt safe and relaxed, and like all of these stomach issues went away. And we looked at like, how were you showing up? Like, were you in choice? Did you have agency? And it was like, yes. So that's, I didn't want to like
really
say
funny.
these. Yeah.
No, that's really funny.
And that's part of the complexity fitness, right? Like, oh, this isn't just about my gut lining and turning that. And that stuff is important. But I think the way that I approach the work with the physical healing is that it's experimental. So people start to repair the self-trust that so many of what they like, they thought their body was broken. And it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be hungry all the time. Oh, I'm not supposed to have cravings all the time. So that self-trust, I think, gives people the courage to then stretch themselves a little bit further for the next time. So I think it has to be like, if self-trust is baked into the process and the unlearning of our bodies being wrong, us being wrong, I think that sets people up for like, I just had one client, she's like, I just want more of this. Now, again, it's hard, right? You need to be supported, right? Optimal conflict is not just about having plantar fasciitis metaphorically. It's, do you have the right support? And so many people think they can do this on their own because their stories are isolating them. Like, I don't know if this is too meta, but like we come up with all these reasons why we can do it on our own, or we'll get to it, because it's hard to look at. Like, it takes time, but it's time well spent, and it's faster than years of spinning your wheels. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think you have to do it incrementally. And then it's like, whoa, that was empowering. Whoa, I have the support. Like, let me keep going.
Yeah. I think it's important to recognize if you haven't done it yet and know you need to, then you do need to find the support to help you guide you through it. I used to do, I mean, with my culinary nutrition expert program, it was guided. You had a coach, you had to hand stuff and you had to do the work. And I think that's why everyone I see who is still in my world, who I come across, me like, that program changed my life. Because if you're guided through anything that you know you need and you do it, it will change. It will change everything, because it's that exact pathway, the gateway in, that kind of helps open the other doors, or makes those, at least offers the on-ramps to the doors that need opening.
Well, and this is a little bit of how the sausage is made. And I get into this like when I'm training practitioners, but it's like that relational repairing of like, you're going to learn something. It's going to be challenging, but you're going to get the support. That is so healing. And like research shows, it doesn't matter what methodology someone has or whatever, like, does the relationship feel safe? So someone can actually come to you and say like, I'm struggling with this. And you gave them that support, right? My whole process is like, why does this make sense? And so yes, Truths with Food is so powerful. And it's because it comes with the assumption that like you're whole. And I've done teachings with other health coaches and like other businesses, right? Like they're under different businesses. And it's like this frequent thing that they'll say like, yeah, like clients will come for the first couple sessions, but then they stop coming. And I'm like, it's because they're ashamed or they feel guilty, and for some reason, there's not enough trust there. Not because these people are bad practitioners, but if you don't know that that's what's happening, it's like, no, you need that that relational reparation of like, bring to me your struggles, instead of like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to disappoint my health coach. Or I feel like I'm going to disappoint my functional medicine doctor. Right. Or like I've had some clients, they go to these like, well-known practitioners, but they're very dogmatic about, you got to be vegetarian. And then they come to me being like, I had crazy cravings on that. I couldn't do it perfectly. And I'm like, maybe that's not working for you. Or I have some clients who are like, I'm on this high protein diet, and like Dr. Stacey Sims tells me to get all this like animal protein. I'm like, well, first of all, she's a vegetarian. So I think she's, there's just this assumption that it has to be animal protein. And it's like, and my stomach is backed up. And I'm like, well, you might have to like ease into it, but like also maybe you need more plant protein, right? It's like, so I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's like that reparative relationship of like, I can experiment. I can figure out what's happening here. That's half of the equation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is why culinary nutrition school was such a success.
Well, thank you. What would be your sort of final bit of guidance that you could offer someone listening who is in either the process of change, or let's say on the precipice of it, which I think is where, like, what I have got from the feedback from my listeners, and thank you everyone, I really appreciate it, because we put this out into like the ethers and never really know, but it's either people who are on the precipice of needing the change, or those getting the validation and naming for what they did that they were unable to explain. But for those on the precipice, like, how does someone, make that first, whether it's, dip the baby toe in or take the full leap to do what is in alignment to bring them towards a place of being replenished and vitality and time freedom and even money, like all of it is wrapped together.
Yeah. I think the most important thing, and it's the most cringy, is you have to be willing to be a beginner. I think you have to question, do I really, because what I found with my clients who tend to have read a lot, it's what they think they know. Well, I'm a perfectionist, or I am this. And it's like, those are actually protective patterns, right? So it's like, or I know all of this, or I don't know any of it, right? It's like, I think the biggest thing is willing to be a beginner. And that involves everything is on the table of, maybe I don't know what I think I know. Mm-hmm. And I hate being a beginner. So I know how cringy that is. And you've even said like, you're starting a hobby and you're like, I'm used to being so proficient. How does it feel to be a beginner, Megan?
It's what I'm finding is that there is so much joy in the process. There's a lot of literal unraveling. Like, I made a mistake. Let me go back a few steps and reimagine how I can do this. And there's also a huge release of over what the expectation of the outcome will be. To recognize like the process is, I could picture like a cheesy quote in a guidance counselor's office, like the process is the outcome. But that is what beginner's mind requires, is that you cannot be attached to a specific goal or a specific outcome, but recognize that doing the work is the work. I'm like a walking cliche now. Doing the work is the work. The process is the outcome. The destination is, I don't know, trodden paths or for trodden men. I don't know. It's that you really just have to be in it and have the discipline to show up again tomorrow. Even if today didn't go as you planned, even if what you created isn't what you wanted or envisioned, but we come back tomorrow and we keep working on it.
That's what I say is the key to success in my programs. It's not, did you do the homework? Do you keep showing up when you don't want to? And that is so that you can sort through it. And, I think part of that is like being a beginner and willing to make the messiness of it, not that you're doing it wrong. Or when it goes right initially, because I tend to have this like beginner's luck thing. I feel like it's the universe always like egging me on. And then like, it's like the sophomore slump where I'm like, oh, that worked. And then I'm like the second time, I'm like, what happened? I suck. And it's like, oh, no. This is just tends to be your life pattern. You don't suck. You got to stay with it. So yeah, I think we have similar outlooks on that then.
Where can everyone go to find out more about you, your programs, and your podcast?
Yes, they can go to truthswithfood.com. My podcast under the same name, Truths with Food, formerly Insatiable, is there. Megan has been on. And then all the info that they need in terms of if there anything interests them, especially in the food realm, or if they are practitioners and interested in bringing this sort of stubborn change. I also have that certification that opens once a year. So all the information is there.
Do you have to be a practitioner to do the certification?
No, not at all.
That's good to know. People like certificates, and I get it because there's an accountability to it.
Yeah.
And it can help you be proficient at the system while you're going through the process.
Yeah. I use what I teach like in like everything. like it's been the key to like me enjoying my life. Yeah.
I have really loved talking to you. I feel like I have to know you a little bit more every time. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Megan. I love how you're pivoting out loud. That's very courageous.
Thank you so much for listening. We threw down a whole bunch of different resources. All of them are available in the show notes in their entirety. This includes the Enneagram, I don't even know how to say it, as well as links to all of Allie's work, her Truths with Food program and the Truths with Food certification, and her podcast. I want to thank you, as always, for joining. Your comments, your reviews, your emails you send in are all deeply appreciated. I see and read them all, and your show of support, kind of sharing your story, letting me know that you are there, means a whole lot to me every single time I receive something. So thank you. Thank you for listening, and I cannot wait to connect with you next time. Have a beautiful rest of your day.